To really understand the beginning of all things, we have to go right back to the source. Before there was anything, there was Eru Iluvatar, the One. And from his thought alone, he brought forth the Ainur, these holy spirits who would go on to sing the world into existence.
But of course, it couldn't be that simple. Right in the middle of this perfect cosmic harmony, a note of discord was struck. Melkor, who is the most powerful of all the Ainur, he didn't just want to add to the music, he wanted to create his own theme, to bend creation to his own will. And that was the first act of rebellion, a choice that would poison the world from its very conception.
And it's this endless conflict, this battle between creation and corruption, that really sets the stage for one of the most important moments in the Elder Days, the awakening of the Firstborn.
Now, to really wrap your head around this, you have to picture a very different world. Imagine there's no sun, there's no moon. It's a silent, ancient land lit only by the cold, distant light of the stars. So the question is, in a world like that, who would be the very first to open their eyes and see it?
Well, that was Middle-earth back then, a world of deep, beautiful shadows, watched over by the godlike Valar, but also haunted by the evil presence of Melkor, who had turned the icy north into his personal fortress. So, who are the Valar? Well, they were the Ainur who chose to actually enter the world, to give it shape and to govern it. Their whole purpose, their great task, was to get Arda ready for the children of Iluvatar, that's the Elves and men, whose arrival was part of the grand cosmic plan from the very beginning. And this really sets up the fundamental conflict of the entire age. You've got the Valar on one side, acting as stewards. They're all about nurturing, creating, and bringing light into the world. And then you have Melkor, whose every single move is aimed at domination, control, and corrupting everything the Valar had built. But you know, even as most of the Valar had retreated to their own paradise of Valinor across the sea, one of them just refused to completely abandon Middle-earth. That was Oromë the Hunter. He'd ride his incredible steed, Nahar, through the dark forests, blowing his great horn, the Vala Oromë. He was like this lone guardian standing against Melkor's creeping evil. And it's a good thing he kept up that lonely vigil, because the single most important event of the age was about to happen. And without him, it might have been lost to the shadows forever. The Firstborn were about to wake up. So picture this. In the far, far east of Middle-earth, by this quiet bay called Cuiviénen, the Firstborn awoke. They knew absolutely nothing. Not of the world, not of the Valar, not of Melkor. The very first thing they ever saw were the stars, which the Vala Varda had just finished making. And because of that, they fell in love with the starlight and revered Varda more than any other power. And the world they woke up in? It was dead silent, except for maybe the sound of water. So when they discovered that they could speak, that they could sing, they gave themselves a name, the Quendi. It means those that speak with voices, which really tells you how utterly alone they were in that young world. They were the first to give it a voice.
So there's Oromë on one of his long patrols near the eastern mountains when his horse, Nahar, just stops dead. And Oromë hears something, faint, far away, a sound that had never been heard before in Middle-earth, singing. He was just filled with wonder. He'd found them. The long-prophesied children of Iluvatar were finally here.
But that joy was cut short almost immediately by a terrible, terrible threat. Melkor knew about the Quendi, too. The Valar realized they had to do something, and their response, well, it was going to be absolutely world-shattering.
Here's the really tragic part, though. Before Oromë even got to them, some of the Quendi had already been lost. Melkor's dark spirits had been snatching any who strayed too far, dragging them to his fortress, Utumno. And there, in the deepest pits, through unimaginable cruelty, he twisted them, corrupted them, and created, as a sick mockery, the Orcs, a living embodiment of his hatred for the children of Iluvatar.
So what did the Valar do? They declared war, an absolute, total war. Their armies marched from the west and laid siege to Utumno. The battle was so immense, so terrible, it literally shook the foundations of the world. But in the end, they broke down the gates, tore the roof off the fortress, and Melkor himself was tackled and pinned by Tulkas the Strong. They bound him in a special chain and dragged him back to Valinor to be imprisoned for 3 long ages.
And you really can't overstate the scale of this war. I mean, this wasn't a fight between armies of men. This was cosmic powers going head-to-head. The violence was so extreme that the very geography of Middle-earth was shattered and remade. The great sea that separated it from the Blessed Realm actually grew wider, like a physical scar from the conflict.
With Melkor locked away, a long peace fell over the world. And during this peace, the Valar made a decision that would change the destiny of the Elves forever. They gave them a choice, a truly fateful one.
So the Valar, who just loved the Elves and feared for their safety in a world that was still scarred by Melkor's evil, they made them an offer. They invited all of the Quendi to leave Middle-earth, to undertake a great journey west, and to come live with them in the Undying Lands in the light of the two trees of Valinor.
So remember that first name they gave themselves? Quendi? That name applied to all of them, to their entire unified people. But that unity, it was about to break.
Now the ones who said yes to the Valar's invitation, they were given a new name by Oromë, the Eldar, the people of the stars. They were the ones willing to leave the starlit world they knew for the promise of something greater, the light of Valinor.
But of course, not everyone wanted to leave. A whole bunch of them refused the summons. They loved their home, they loved the starlight, and frankly, they were afraid of the powers of the Valar and this immense journey. These elves became known as the Avari, the unwilling. And right there, with that choice, the first great split among the elves happened.
And this decision, made right at the very dawn of their kind, wasn't just some small disagreement. It created two totally separate peoples. It set them on two different paths that would define their cultures, their powers, and their fates for thousands and thousands of years.
And this is seen as a huge tragedy, you know? This parting at Cuiviénen is considered the very first of the great sorrows of the elves, because from that moment on, you have this deep division between the High Elves, who went to see the light of the trees, and the Sylvan, or Wood Elves, who stayed behind in Middle-earth. Their destinies were forever changed.
And that really leaves us with this big lingering question at the heart of their entire story. By refusing the call, did the Avari doom themselves to just fade away as darkness eventually returned to Middle-earth? Or, on the other hand, did the Eldar, in their search for safety and light, basically abandon their real home and walk into a beautiful prison, cutting themselves off from the very world they were meant to love and protect? It's a question that echoes through all of their stories.